I'm good. I'm good. Okay, because the first thing we have to do is have to decide which lens to use. So is it this lens, is it this lens, or is it this lens? Yeah, okay. Well, all right. So this morning, I want to talk about something many of us have secretly wondered about. Okay? I want to talk about pain, a secret place of anger and despair, a secret place of frustration, a secret place that we hardly ever look at, we certainly don't think about, a secret place in our hearts that we hardly ever even dare to talk about. In that secret place, we wonder why our prayer was not answered. In that secret place, we really yearn to understand, if we stop and think about it, we want to understand why did the gates of heaven seem totally and utterly and completely silent and absolutely indifferent when we came with our needs and our desires and our prayer. And for all the good we get into a situation sometimes we think, you know what, for all the good it does, we might as well pray to a rock. You know? And I believe they're really honest with ourselves, we would have to say that, yeah, all right. I prayed a prayer, and I prayed a prayer, and I prayed that prayer, and I prayed that prayer, and I prayed that prayer, and then I gave up and went on with my life. Oh, but then it was very exciting. Or it was very exciting because we heard that, oh, well, the preacher's going to preach about prayer on Sunday morning, so we're finally going to learn how to do this prayer thing. And so we went on Sunday morning, we're going to hear them say, well, you know, what do we hear? What do we hear? All the usual amazing stuff. Okay? I mean, seriously, all the usual amazing stuff. Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. Ask, and it shall be given you. For everyone that asketh receiveth. John chapter 14, verses 13 and 14. Whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do. If you shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. And so we go away from it and think, whoa, we finally figured out, we finally got the key. We have to pray in Jesus' name. No, we've been doing that. And so now we find ourselves in this no-win situation, right? Because now, if I admit that my prayer was not answered, well, it must mean that I did not believe. And if I did not believe, well, then of course my prayer wasn't answered. So what am I supposed to do? And we might get into this place where we think, yeah, you know what? And people get to come to this place, and I understand why, and say, why would you continue to do something that don't work? I mean, seriously. And I wanted answers to this question. I wanted to know, why does prayer not work? And I was asking this question when I first came to Science of Mind in Atlanta 30 years ago. And I wanted answers. And they said, oh, prayer, what? Change your thinking, change your life. I said, wow. Change your thinking, change your life. And it was exciting. It was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, because it meant that there was no longer any need to sit quietly in the prayer closet and shut the doors so it's real quiet and dark. And we sit in the prayer closet, right? And you wait, and heaven's going to do something, and you hope it's within the next 10 years. Change your thinking, change your life said to me that we ourselves have a responsibility to take proactive steps so that we are assured of an answer. So, to help me change my thinking, so I got to change my life, I read the work of Ernest Holmes, this founder of Science of Mind. I read the work of Raymond Charles Barker, who was one of Ernest Holmes' students. And then I studied under the guidance of Kennedy Schultz, who was one of Raymond Charles Barker's students. And I read the book, and I took the classes, and did the affirmations, and I got a Science of Mind practitioner's license, and I changed my thinking, and I changed my life in many areas, and it really was amazing, and it worked, and it was exciting, it was exhilarating, but there was a problem. All right? And I wanted to know, all right, change your thinking, change your life, fine. But why is it that in this area over here, or that area over there, I changed my thinking. I went inside. I did the work. I changed my thinking, but everything out there and everybody out there stayed the same. I changed my stinking thinking, but my stinking life didn't change. And I needed to know why. Now, the good fun. The answer is hidden, embedded, encoded in the Bible, in the book of Judges. Like, wait a minute. There's a book of Judges in the Bible? Wait, what? There's what? Well, the thing of it is that nobody's ever heard of it. Nobody's ever read it. It's like, oh, there's nothing like that in the Bible. But there is. And the book of Judges has to do with the time period after the children of Israel had entered the land, the promised land. They had entered that, and they're beginning to have this sense of national identity. And they are now, the book tells us how they struggle to establish and maintain political and spiritual boundaries. Okay? And in the book of Judges, chapter 7, we read a fascinating story. We read a fascinating story about Gideon. Okay? Now, let's see, where are we? Okay. The people, Gideon is the leader of the Israelite army, and they are coming up against the army of the people of Midian. Now, who are the people of Midian? We need to know. The people of Midian were descendants of Abraham. It's like, well, is everybody a descendant of Abraham? Yeah, kind of. Sort of. The people of Midian were descendants of Abraham with his second wife, whose name was Keturah. And after Abraham's wife, Sarah, died, then he remarried and married Keturah. Big backstory. And one of their children's name was Midian. And the Midianites worshipped a male sky god called Baal. You know, in English, my Southern Baptist background, it was Baal. They were Baal worshipers. All right, they worship him, Baal. All right, but it's actually Baal, and it's no big surprise here. It's a Hebrew word, and the Hebrew word just means master. Now, if we want to look at this metaphysically, the Midianites represent those things that persistently bother us, the proverbial thorn in our side. The Midianites represent those areas in our lives where we changed our stinking thinking and our stinking life didn't change. That's the Midianites. Okay, Judges chapter 7. It starts off and it says, then Yerubbaal, who is Gideon. I think, now wait a minute. I thought we were talking about Gideon. Now what is this? That's a hard word. Yerubbaal. Okay, I said, who is this? So I did the research. Gideon is the man's name. Gideon in Hebrew means the destroyer. Yerubbaal is his family name, and it means fights against Baal. And so Gideon is the destroyer who fights against Baal. So the story goes on. Okay. Then Yerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the soldiers that were with him rose up early and made camp beside the well of Harod, so that the army of Midianites was on the north side of them in the valley of the hill, by the hill of Moed. Now, it gets more interesting too. It's just amazing. Okay, King James Bible says the well of Harod. And that's a real interesting translation because it's the phrase in Hebrew, Ein Harod. Ein Harod means the center of terror. All right, so here's the scenario. The Israelite army is in the center of terror. And the story goes on. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the soldiers that are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Yisrael lift themselves up against me, saying, woo, my own hand has saved me. All right? Now, the army of Midian was compared to the size of a plague of locusts. And they had so many camels. I mean, did you know there was such a thing as a battle camel? I mean, who knew there was battle camels? They had so many battle camels. They had so many battle camels. It's like Star Wars, you know. They had so many battle camels that the number of battle camels was compared to the number of grains of sand on the beach. This vast thing of battle camels. And so Gideon tells his army, he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Whoever's afraid, go home. And immediately 2/3 of the army goes home. So we're not going to fight in battle camels. We are outnumbered just by battle camels, and we are out of here. Okay. Told you it gets fun. Okay, so verse 4 says, and the Lord said unto Gideon, the soldiers are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I'll test them for you there. And so God tells Gideon, he says, okay, the soldiers that I say go, they go with you. The soldiers I say stay, they stay. Now, here's the strange part, okay? Now you know, but you need to know by now that in the Bible, when you get to the strange part, the weird part, the part that makes no sense, the part that doesn't fit, that's where the secrets are hidden. Okay, see, that's the clue, because the light is saying, the Creator is saying, no secrets here. Don't look here. Right, nothing to see. Okay, so this is where the secrets are hidden. When the soldiers got down to the river to drink, most of them got down on their hands and knees, stuck their face in the water, and said, slurp, 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 got the water. Okay? A very few of them got on their knees and dipped the water in their hand. Okay? Now, the soldiers who put their face in the water, the slurpers go home. The ones that dip the water with their hands, they stay. Okay? They are going to be the ones who are going to stay and defeat the Midianites. All right? Slurpers go home, dippers with me. And so Gideon, the destroyer who fights against Baal, is left with 300 men. Got 300 guys left. Started with 32,000. 2/3 of them went home afraid because they're already outnumbered. They're already outnumbered by battle camels, all right? Then, after he sent all the slurpers home, slurpers go home, dippers with me, there's only 300 guys left. Now, once I got into the story, the thing of it was that there's so many details in this story. There's numbers. Every time there's a number, it means something. And these tiny, tiny details, it don't matter. Who cares? Left hand, right hand, who cares? It matters because everything here is a Kabbalistic reference. All right, and this morning we're going to take a look at a couple of them. Now, here's the rest of the story. So you got 300 guys left, so Gideon divides the 300 into 3 groups of 100. They take trumpets. Now imagine a ram's horn, a shofar, a ram's horn. Okay? They took the ram's horn trumpets. They took torches. They took torches hidden inside of clay jugs. All right? And at midnight, at the changing of the guard in the Midianite camp, the Israelites shouted. They blew the trumpets, and they broke the clay jugs so that suddenly the torches became visible. All right? And hearing the shouting and the blowing of the trumpets and the breaking of the clay, all of a sudden, the Midianite army thought they were surrounded by who knows what, and the great army of Midian, possibly the greatest army on the planet at that time, fled in chaos. Because, see, listen, suddenly the Ein Chawod, the center of terror, was no longer with the Israelites. It was with the Midianites, and they ran for their lives. Okay? Now, the Midianites, representing those things that bother us and won't go away, the part where we change our stinking thing and our stinking life didn't change, they ran away from the light and the sound as if they had never been there at all. Ain't that cool? Okay, part two. Okay? We understand that everything is energy. Okay, well, I feel the energy in that. Well, everything is energy, and it is. But the Kabbalah takes this understanding a step further, and it's an important step. Yes, it's all energy. Okay, it is. But the energy, it comes two ways. Who knew? It comes two ways. Energy comes as energy, it comes as light, it comes as vessel. And this teaching of light and vessel is what I want to share, because we're going to apply this with the help of Noah and with the help of Ananias and Sapphira. We're going to apply this teaching of light and vessel to the story of Gideon and understand why prayer is not answered. Now, the light and vessel means that spiritual energy, much like physical energy, has to have a container in order to function on the earth plane. Okay? Water needs a pipe, electricity needs a wire. All energy has to have a vessel so that it can function safely on the earth plane. Right? Now, this idea is illustrated very beautifully by the torches hidden inside the clay vessels. Likewise, I want you to think about fire, because fire is energy, and we get that part. And when the fire is contained inside a fireplace or a fire pit, then it's warm and it's cheerful and it's pleasant, and God knows everybody looks better in firelight. Firelight. Now, fire without a container, God forbid, is a forest fire. And when there's a forest fire, what do the firefighters do? They work to contain the fire. They work to put that energy back into a container. And the energy of prayer works precisely the same way. It requires a vessel in order for the answer to be received. Now, many times, here's the thing, here's the kicker, many times prayer cannot be answered because there is no vessel in which to receive it. If there is no vessel, this is a secret that I'm going to tell to you. If there is no vessel in which to receive God's light, then the mercy of God flips and it becomes judgment. Very familiar example, Noah. Okay? Remember Noah, the ark and the flood and that whole gig? Okay? Here's the thing about Noah. Noah and the ark cannot be understood properly without this Kabbalistic concept of light and vessel. Now, when we were in Vacation Bible School, say 5 or 6 decades ago, we were in Vacation Bible School, and how did they tell us the story? Well, God told Noah, build a boat, put all the animals on it, and then God sent a flood, and God killed all them bad people. Right? Isn't that what we learned in Vacation Bible School? God killed them all. And then the scientists among us want to ask pesky questions like, all right, fine, whatever, but how did the penguins get on the ark? They swam from Antarctica? And the buffalo, in North America, how did the buffalo get on the ark? You know, across the Atlantic and this whole thing. And so and they said, well, you have to believe. Have faith. Just believe. And we get the faith part, we get the believe part way too much. But that answer is not good enough. The answer to Noah and the ark is light and vessel. Okay? So I get excited about this. God told Noah to do what? Go build a vessel. Build a vessel. Noah and his family had a vessel. The people out there, they simply did not. And one day, this is where the Sunday school teaching, the catechism teaching, and veers away from the Kabbalah. One day, because of the wickedness and the selfishness and the bigotry and the darkness of the people, God did what? Sent a flood of mercy. Sent a flood of mercy, not judgment. Not judgment. Anytime you see water in the Bible, it always means mercy. Not judgment, but mercy. And for the people who had a vessel, the water lifted them up. For the people who had no vessel, the mercy flipped and became judgment. That's what the story is trying to tell us. It's an entirely different understanding. Now, the obvious question that follows then is, how do you make a vessel? How do you build an ark? Here's the formula. There are many ways to do it. There are many ways to build a vessel. We'll look at the most familiar. A vessel, here's the formula. A vessel is created by desire plus asking or affirming out loud plus time equals a vessel through which prayer can be answered. Desire plus asking or affirming out loud plus time equals a vessel through which prayer can be answered. Now, this concept immediately clears up a pesky question I once asked when I was a teenager. Thank goodness for teenagers asking pesky questions. Thank God for teenagers asking pesky questions. Because the pesky question I asked was, I said, all right, what's the point of making our needs known unto God? What's the point? When we read in Matthew chapter 6, verse 8, it says, your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask Him. And so I asked the preacher, I said, okay, so if God knows what we need before we ask, then what's the point of asking? If the Father in heaven already knows, then isn't asking, isn't that kind of like saying, you don't really know? You don't really know. And we need to give you some prompting so you'll know what we need you to do sometime between now and the next 15 years, please. Okay? Preacher couldn't answer. So here's the answer. Light and vessel. All right, a torch inside a clay jug. Desire plus asking or affirming out loud plus time equals a vessel. The energy of divine light revealed inside a vessel made of earth. How do we know this? This is the question we need to ask. Fine, sounds great, but how do we know this? Because of the story of Gideon and the 300 dippers. Dippers with me, slurpers go home. Now, Gideon's original army of 32,000 was already vastly outnumbered just by battle camels alone. And then 22,000 went home because they were afraid. The 10,000 went down to the river to drink. 300 drank water with their hands. They were the dippers, dippers with me. The rest slurped, slurpers go home. Why were the slurpers sent home? The slurpers were sent home because they were connecting to the energy without a vessel. It's true. The dippers, the few who drank water by dipping with their hands, the dippers were connecting to the energy with a vessel. Okay, there's the difference. Desire plus asking or affirming out loud plus time will create a vessel through which the energy of God will fill that vessel. When there is no vessel, the Creator's love and mercy will wait until there is a vessel, until we have created a vessel so that the energy that comes in will be for a blessing. Isn't that just a really sweet, and just wow. It makes you think, wow, that's just kind of cool. Okay, this amazing insight of light and vessel has been known for centuries, but it was only through the work of Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, who founded the Kabbalah Center in Jerusalem in 1922, who began to reveal this teaching of light and vessel. But wait, there's more. I changed my thinking, stinking thinking, but my stinking life didn't change. We want to know why. Fine, light and vessel, whatever, but we still want to know, why is prayer not answered? We want to know about the times when we had the desire. We asked and we affirmed out loud, we gave it some time, and 30 years later we're still wondering where it is. You know? And it's time to know why. it's time to start to heal that secret place of pain and anger and frustration and tears. Why does prayer seem to go unanswered? The answer is light and vessel. For the light of God's answer to be revealed, for our prayer to be answered, we must build a vessel. Desire plus asking or affirming out loud plus time is the formula to create a vessel. Does it sound simple? Yeah, it is. It's very simple. Creating a vessel is easy. It's easy. We do it all the time. The problem is not in creating the vessel. The problem is keeping it empty. Oh. We create the vessel and we fill it up with ourselves. We fill the vessel with worry because we just don't know. I don't know. This is bills and this. And we fill it up with worry. We fill it up with fear. We create the vessel. We fill it with our desire for control because I want it this way. Well, I want it that way. And I want my soulmate to be blonde with blue eyes. And I want it fast, and I want it my way, and I want to know why it ain't here yet. But the thing is, when we fill up our vessel with fear and worry and anxiety and control, then the first thing the light has to do is empty the vessel. How do we know this? Judges chapter 7. Okay? Out of Gideon's original 32,000 soldiers, 22,000 went home afraid. Does it sound like Gideon's vessel is being emptied of fear? Yeah. And then down at the river, dippers with me, slurpers go home. When the slurpers go home, it starts to sound like Gideon's vessel is being emptied of selfishness. When Gideon had finally had an empty vessel, the answer to his problem was revealed. He had to have an empty vessel. His vessel had to be empty so that there would never be any reason for Gideon to lift himself up against the Creator and say, "Woo! My own hand has done this. I'm amazing." When we pray, we may experience delays, obstacles, and setbacks. When that happens, it's very, very good news. The delays, the obstacles, the setbacks, those are good news. Because delays, obstacles, and setbacks mean that, number one, we have a vessel. And number two, that vessel is being emptied so that it can be filled with blessings until it overflows. When we experience obstacles and setbacks and delays, it's not a time to be angry. It's not a time to be afraid or worried. It's a time to be joyful, a time to be excited. Rabbi Michael Berg says that that's a time to stay calm and certain. It's a time to know that the prayer has been heard. It was heard. It was heard. It was heard. And the place for the answer to be revealed is being prepared. Now, what would happen if the Creator's light came to fill a vessel that was already partly full of fear and anger and selfishness? Okay? What would happen? What would that look like? Well, here's the answer. When the temple still stood in Jerusalem, every year on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, every year on Yom Kippur, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies. One day out of the year, and nobody was allowed inside but the high priest. And he had to go in alone to invoke the Creator's light for all of Israel and all of the world.